So what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Carrasco Ranch. My name is Robert. If this is your first time tuning in, so in today's video I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of the South Texas lakes, kind of ranking them in order by different categories, and then giving you the final tally at the end of the video. So definitely stay tuned. Also check me out on zenfulwarrior.com. It's my blog. There is a paid subscription for more exclusive content, and then there's a free portion of it as well. But yeah, without further ado, guys, we're going to get into the lakes. Some of the lakes we're going to list, just to name them right off the bat, is going to be Lake Corpus Christi, Choke Canyon Lake, Falcon Lake, Lake Amistad, Calaveras, and Browning. So stay tuned. Again, they're all ranked in different orders for different categories. Guys, let me know in the comments which is your preferred lake to fish, to just, jet ski, to go out swimming, spend time with the family. Let me know which lake you prefer down in the comments. I'm interested to see what everybody else thinks. Alright guys, so here we have all my lakes. I'm going to go ahead and show you right now. So we have the lakes listed right here. First one is Choke, Corpus Christi. Choke means Choke Canyon Reservoir, Corpus Christi Lake, Calaveras, Browning, Falcon, and Lake Amistad. So those are all our lakes that we have. The first category I have listed is fishing. Basically, I listed them in order for this category on the best fishing. And this is based off of my personal experience, mainly for catfish, a little bit of bass fishing. Those are the two species that I based this list on for the fishing. So Choke and Corpus Christi Lake are both really good fishing lakes. I feel like Corpus Christi, this one right here, is a little more of an underrated lake. It doesn't get as many visitors. It's just, you got Choke Canyon, you got the coast. Choke Canyon's closer to the San Antonio area. If you're in the Corpus Christi area, more than likely you're going to the coast. So I feel like Corpus Christi Lake gets overlooked a lot, but the fishing is actually really good. So that's the reason I tied these two for number one. I couldn't really decide because I've had excellent luck at both of these lakes. Moving on down to the next one is Falcon Lake. Falcon Lake also is a little underrated, I guess. It doesn't get a lot of visitors. Also, it's down in the Zapata County area towards the border. So it doesn't get a whole lot of traffic as well, but it also is a good fishing lake. I know mainly for bass fishing. I know about 10 years ago, they used to run a lot of tournaments out there, 10-15 years ago for bass fishing. The next one is Lake Amistad. That's over there by Del Rio. This one is a beautiful lake. I've been out there about a year ago when I was going up to Big Bend. I went through Lake Amistad and kind of checked it out for a little bit. I had gone there probably about 10 years ago before that. Again, fishing is okay. Not as good as Choke Canyon or Corpus Christi in my opinion, or in my personal luck, my personal experience. Calaveras and Browning, or Calaveras and Browning, I rated this one a little higher, Calaveras, because I have had a little bit more luck at Calaveras than I have Browning. And from a lot of the pages I do follow as well, Calaveras does seem to have more fish being pulled out of there than Browning. So that's the reason that's in that order. So water color or water quality, basically how aesthetically pleasing is the water to look at. That's what this category is. So number one by far is going to be Lake Amistad and even Falcon Lake 1 and 2. They are in like some rock bluffs. There's a lot of like rocky terrain. And so the water is a lot clearer. It's a lot prettier. It's bluer. I know just recently when I went down to Big Bend, Lake Amistad was, pretty low. You could see a lot of those rings around the rocks. What do they call them? The toilet bowl rings or whatever they call them. You can see those rings where the water used to be and where it is now, but the water is still very beautiful, still really blue, bluish greenish, I guess you could say. Same thing for Falcon. It's down by the border, but it does have some good, nice, clean looking water. Calaveras, it's a little bit murky at times. It kind of just depends, kind of with anything, what kind of rain have we gotten recently, and kind of runoffs, things like that's going to affect that water quality. And Browning, Choke, and Corpus Christi, those are all pretty similar with the exception of Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi does get really, really murky, really, really brown when we have a lot of rain. And for a lot of the time, it is brown. It's like a lighter shade of brown for the most part, Corpus Christi Lake. But when it does get some heavy rain, it takes a very, very long time for all that sediment in the water to settle. So Corpus Christi Lake does look a little nastier, I guess, quote unquote nasty, but it's just doesn't look aesthetically pleasing, but the fishing is still great at Corpus Christi Lake. Moving on to the next one, location. So how I went on location was, how close is it to the biggest metropolitan area? So if you wanted to go with location based off of how remote it is, if you're a person who likes more of the rural fishing locations, then basically you're just going to put this list in reverse. So starting with 1, that would actually be number 6, and vice versa, just going all the way down. But I did it based off of location because most of my subscribers are in larger metropolitan areas, just going from the analytics. So like I said, first one is Brawning. This is, one of the ones that's closer to San Antonio, closer to a lot more people, more accessible to more people. So that's the reason I put it at 1. 2, also, Calaveras is not that far from Brawning. They're in the general vicinity of each other. 3 is going to be Choke Canyon. Choke Canyon's a little bit more of a drive for most people coming from the San Antonio area. If you're coming from Corpus Christi, then obviously Corpus Christi Lake is going to be closer for you. If you're coming from the valley, then Choke Canyon will actually be closer for you. Again, depending where you're coming from, if you're coming from Del Rio, in that area, obviously you have some closer lakes, but for Choke Canyon, it's going to be kind of in the middle between San Antonio, the valley, in that area. So that's the reason it's at number 3. Number 4 is Corpus Christi. Like I said, it's going towards the coast. It's in Mathis, Texas, in that area. 5 and 6. So 5 and 6. 5 is down, like I said, in Zapata County, and Amistad is in Del Rio. So again, it's a lot less accessible for a lot of people coming from the San Antonio area, or anywhere just south of San Antonio. It's not easily accessible. You do have to drive, a couple hours to get there. For those people who do live like in the Del Rio area or down even further in South Texas, Amistad and Falcon Lake are going to be closer for you guys. Because I know I have a couple of guys who are subscribed that are down in the valley. So for those of you guys, it's probably going to be in reverse order for you. So the crowds, how packed are these lakes? Basically, personally, I hate fishing when there's a lot of crowds. I have fished at Calaveras for sure when it's been like just jam-packed, it's crazy. You have to get there early just to get a good spot because there's a line of people. Same thing for Brawning, because it's so close to a metropolitan area. That's the negative downside of being so close to a big metropolitan area. So for this one, obviously the most remote ones, which is going to be Falcon and Amistad, are going to have less people, less crowds, because they are less accessible. So if you care about crowds, you're probably going to want to check out those 2 lakes more than likely. Now moving on to 3 and 4, Choke Canyon and Corpus Christi Lake. Both of these can get crowded. Choke Canyon will get a little bit more crowded when they run those tournaments. They do have some bass fishing tournaments, cat fishing tournaments out there as well. So it does get crowded around that time. But since Choke is more accessible than Falcon and Lake Amistad, it does tend to have more people. Now, I fish at Choke a lot because I enjoy it. I really do like Choke Canyon a lot, honestly. And South Shore is less used versus the Callahan unit, so just keep that in mind if you are looking for less crowds. South Shore, as of right now, is going to be having less people than at the Callahan unit. So Brawning and Calaveras, like I said, I hate fishing these because there's just so many people, and sometimes people get in your way. Sometimes you get people who just don't know what they're doing. They end up crossing your line. It's just something I just don't want to mess with, to be honest with you. So I stay away from those places as much as possible. But I have fished at both of these places. Again, you have to get there early. Sometimes you have to wait in line just to get in there. Again, the only 2 that are not state parks are going to be Calaveras and Brawning. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, the Calaveras and Brawning do get very, very crowded. So moving on to the next one, which is going to be amenities. So how I based amenities was, because I know a lot of guys who will take their families fishing with them. So amenities are going to be important. So the reason I put them in this order is because I based it off of, are there any properties available for rent on the water? So are there any Airbnbs or any kind of short-term rental or homes that people visiting these lakes can rent for their families? That's how I based this off of. So Lake Corpus Christi does have Airbnbs on the water, so you can literally sit by the water. You have a house, and you have a toilet, you have a restroom, you have a shower, you have a private home, and you can fish right off the dock. Same thing for Lake Amistad. This one, I didn't find anything super close on the water from some of the pictures. I've never stayed on Amistad. I have stayed in Corpus Christi, but from the pictures, they were fairly close enough. There may have been a couple that were on the water, but the pictures maybe didn't do it enough justice. So as far as the others, so I know Choke does not have any homes sitting on the water that you can actually access. They don't have any Airbnbs. Same thing for Calaveras, Browning, and Falcon. Falcon did have some cabins outside of the park, I believe. Again, but not, super close where you can include it into like the Corpus Christi category or Amistad category, where the homes are literally right on the water. So the next one I have here is going to be, I'm trying to move this little guy down, is going to be the Scenic. The view, is it like the landscape and the wildlife you're going to see at these places, at these parks. Let me just check off these, that way I know I went through these. So moving on to the Scenic, I guess rating on this, basically how nice is the drive, how nice is the landscape of the park, and how many wildlife, trees, and things like that will you see. So Amistad and Falcon are both on the border between Texas and Mexico. Amistad is going to be in Del Rio. Falcon is going to be in like the Zapata County area. Amistad, I went there, like I said, down to going down to Big Bend. It has beautiful water. The landscape is really nice. It's a lot of like rocky terrain. It's in the desert. Same thing with Falcon, in the desert. So if you like that kind of scenery, which is different for a lot of us that are not in that area, it's a really nice scenery to look at. So moving on to Choke Canyon. Choke Canyon is more of your native South Texas mesquite brush landscape. There's a lot of Rio Grande turkeys out there. There's a lot of white-tailed deer. There are some feral hogs you'll see from time to time, and a ton of javelina. I suggest you don't try to pet these. I have seen people go out there and basically try to touch these things. They are wild animals, but you will see a lot of wildlife at Choke Canyon, especially in the winter whenever things cool down and they're moving around more. Same thing with Corpus Christi. So Corpus Christi has a lot of deer. They have a lot of wildlife roaming around, especially because there are a lot of homes in and around the lake. So they do attract more, I guess, rodents like raccoons and possums and things like that. Which one else is Browning and Calaveras? If you want more of a city view, I would recommend Calaveras or Browning because they do have some power plants that are basically right off the lakes, and you can see them. They're right on the lake, and you can kind of see them in the background depending on where you're at. You'll get a different view of the plants themselves. So the water is typically warmer because the plants are, I guess, either recycling that water, putting it back in there, or the water is just consistently moving with the plant being so close. But the water is a lot warmer at those two lakes, and you will have that view of the plant. If that's not what you want to see, you don't want to see man-made structures, then Calaveras and Browning are not going to be the lakes for you. So I was actually kind of surprised. I was just kind of rating them as I went along, and then I totaled them all at the end here, and I was kind of surprised with what it came up with. I wasn't, I had actually thought maybe Choke Canyon was going to be first for me, but it actually was not. Again, I was just rating them off of these right here, these kind of criteria right there, and at the end I just totaled it up and just kind of checked it out for myself. But overall, Lake Amistad won for overall, I guess, best lake south of San Antonio in the South Texas region. Next was followed by Falcon, and then Choke Canyon and Corpus Christi. Now again, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do some really good fishing, obviously, going from my list, Choke Canyon or Corpus Christi is where you want to go, which is what I'm mainly concerned with. Honestly, I'm more concerned with fishing. I like to go out there, catch fish, eat fish. That's what I go out there to do. But again, it is nice to travel down to other lakes and see different scenery and different topography and just check out different areas. But yeah, so the last ones for me were Calaveras and Brawning. Again, mainly because of the crowds. The crowds are just horrible there. It just gets overpopulated. There's just so many people fishing on those lakes, and they're not super large lakes like some of like the Choke Canyons or Amistad. There's a lot smaller lakes, so they do get more crowded than some of these bigger lakes. Also, the accessibility, it's very accessible for a lot of people, especially people coming from San Antonio. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But yeah, so Lake Amistad is the one that won, along with Falcon overall. But again, depending on which category you're going after, if you're going over, you know, for the best water quality, then obviously, you know, Amistad. If you want to go for fishing, Choke Canyon, Corpus Christi. If you want to go for amenities and you want to, you know, more of a family setting where you can, you know, rent a house, then you're going to want to look at Corpus Christi or Lake Amistad. Again, just depending on what you want to do. If you want a location, if you want to be closer to the city, then you're going to want to be at Brawning or Calaveras. Again, just depending on which type of a getaway you're trying to do. Well, alrighty guys, I hope you all enjoyed that quick video on my ranking of the top lakes in South Texas. The one that's kind of far out is Lake Amistad, but you know, it's the only lake in the general area, so I went ahead and included it in the listing. But yeah guys, like always, be careful, be good, take care, and God bless. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.